In this video we're going to have a look at pending transactions. When you go to apply a charge against an owner for an item, I'll just pop in here, just grab one here for plumbing against Mr. McCartney. You can insert a charge against an owner for work that has been performed. When you select on this one here, we get or are able to see a tick in the pending box. This identifies to us that this owner does not have sufficient funds for the charge to be processed at this point in time. And when we click save, we are given a prompt to tell us so that there's insufficient funds and that we have two options. One is that we can click yes, and the marked transaction will record it as a pending transaction, so that when we do process a receipt or we have funds available, we're able to apply that charge. I also have the option to click on no, which will then just cancel the charge I've done, and I will come back and process that again when there's sufficient funds available. So in my case, I want to say yes to process that charge as a pending transaction. If I go to have a look at the owners list, I go into Mr. McCartney's record and into his account tab. We do have a tick box up the top right hand corner here, view pending, and if I tick the box there, it gives me an indication of pending monies that are sitting on this owner's account. The other way of identifying any pending monies in the owners area here is under the balances tab, and what I can see at the bottom here, pending payments which need to be made on behalf of this owner here. The recipient of those funds, the supplier, will also show some information about pending transactions. So I go to my suppliers, XYZ Plumbing, and into the account tab there. Again, we have that view pending tick box there, and by ticking that again, we can see the pending transaction that is sitting there. The other way of identifying those pending transactions, under process and pending transactions here, we can then see Mr. McCartney's one here again as a pending transaction. Now this one here, no tick in the box under sufficient funds, which as we know means that there is not enough money for that charge to be applied. This top one here for Mr. Harrison shows that there is sufficient funds for at least one of his charges to be applied there, and we'll be able to process that. Before I do, what I'm going to do is close out of that screen. I'm just going to do a receipt against the tenant who is in Mr. McCartney's property there, Mr. Moon here. When I process a rent payment for this particular tenant, we get a prompt there telling us there's now sufficient funds available to process the pending transaction against that owner. So we have the option to say yes or no at this point in time. If I say no, then we don't do anything about that there. If I say yes, it'll actually take me directly to that pending transaction screen, and we can see there now Mr. McCartney shows that there's sufficient funds for that charge to be applied. And what we can do then is tick the box there to process that charge there, and then by selecting process at the top, it will mark all pending transactions as processed, and it's only going to be these ones. So although there is sufficient funds for that one, if I haven't ticked the box, it's not going to process that pending transaction there. So yes to that one there, and now that transaction is no longer showing there, no longer pending. I close out of there, go to my owners list and Mr. McCartney. Under the account tab there now, there is the charge being applied, of course. Nothing left in the view pending there, and in our balances option there, no pending transactions showing there because we've already charged that monies against the owner. So it's important that if you do apply a transaction that's listed as pending and you want to put that through, you must click on yes. It's important as well, if you wish to process any of those through the month when monies comes available, that you action those accordingly. You do have the option to look at those pending transactions as part of your end of month procedure, so it's important then to process any transactions that are having sufficient funds available.